Traders, welcome back to another tutorial video. This time we are diving into the world of Bollinger indicators, Bollinger Bands, BBTrend, and so much more, including Bollinger Bars, which you see on the chart right in front of you. Now, before we dive in, before we really kick this thing off, let us remind you that if you go to the Technicals menu within the Indicators, Metrics, and Strategies menu, you'll see it says BBTrend. Click the tooltip and you can watch our in-depth explainer of the BBTrend indicator. In fact, this is going to tell you everything you need to know about the BBTrend indicator. And in this video, we're going to cover it again, but we're really going to focus on Bollinger Bands, giving you another high-level basic, Bollinger Bands percentage B, Bollinger Bandwidth, and Bollinger Bars, which says new. It's a new indicator. So let's kick this off. We already have Bollinger Bands added to our chart. We already have Bollinger Bars added to our chart. Let's explain both of those, then dive into Bollinger Bands percentage B. So what you'll see here is a chart that has Bollinger Bands, and ladies and gentlemen, Bollinger Bands are the lines here at the top, the line here at the bottom, the line here in the middle, and then the shaded blue, really light blue, that is between the top and bottom lines there. That is Bollinger Band. So watch this. I'm going to hide this. There, it's all gone, right? That shaded area is gone. The top line's gone. The middle line's gone. The bottom line's gone. Click. Now it's back. Bollinger Bands are on. This is how Bollinger Bands look. It's bands. Think of it like these bands following price action. Well, you should know three things about this specific indicator. Number one, the blue line in the middle here is a moving average that you get to define or set to 20 by default. 20 simple moving average. And the source is the closing price. But you can change all of this as you need. Now, the standard deviation says 2, and that's the second and third point to bring up about this indicator. The top green line here is 2 standard deviations away from this middle line. The bottom red line here is 2 standard deviations away from this blue middle line, or this price, or this simple moving average. So effectively, what you have before your eyes is a wonderful real-time visualization of how the price is moving in a moving average, but also in terms of its standard deviation from that moving average. Now, anyone who has studied basic statistics and knows about the bell curve and distributions, you are probably immediately understanding why this is so interesting in the world of statistics. You get to visualize the price 2 standard deviations away, and then you can make some assessments if it's gotten euphoric, or maybe it's gotten too bearish. Maybe there needs to be a regression to the mean. Also, this indicator is powerful from the standpoint of you can change the standard deviation. So if I change it to 3, which is quite an extended price point, well, there we go. You see the bands now change because now I'm seeing the 3 standard deviation bands at the top and bottom. Now you'll notice, by the way, in style, you can change these bands, band color, look and feel to anything you wish. Sometimes people will say that the top here represents maybe some sort of euphoria. The bottom represents an opportunity to buy the dip, but others say it's actually the opposite. When price is pressing against the upper bands, it might show that there's buying power. There is strength pushing it upward. On the downward side, the opposite might be true. And now that does bring us to Bollinger Bars, which we have added onto the chart. Now, Bollinger Bars are quite unique in the sense that you can utilize them with all of the other Bollinger indicators on TradingView. And if you go read our blog, you will see that we've worked with John Bollinger on these specific indicators. So when you go to the technicals section here in the indicators, metrics, and strategies menu, and go down to the Bollinger indicators area here, you'll see all of these indicators called Bollinger. Well, these are some pretty famous indicators that in some instances go back multiple decades, and the all-new Bollinger Bars has been added, and it can be utilized with all of the other Bollinger indicators. So you have a Bollinger suite of indicators at your disposal when you're a TradingView member. Now, one more thing to keep in mind is that this specific indicator works with all chart types. So, for example, if we want to have an area chart, you can see it still works. If we wanted to have a line chart, you can see it still works. In this example, we are going to go to basic candlesticks, and now you can see our chart has effectively turned into Bollinger Bars. So we still see the candlestick charts here, the green and the red, but we have these blue bars that are added as well. The blue bars are for you to customize the color, look, and feel of your chart to really remove the wicks from your process or to colorize them and create a fully custom bar with colors entirely to your needs. Now, as you know, before we really explain this indicator, a green candle in this instance means that the open here was down here and the close was up here. Meaning if you bought it at the open, you were green. It closed up here. It's green. The opposite is true if you see a red candle. That means the open was here and the close was down here. Thus, it is red. So anytime you look at a candle and see these colors, that's what it means. A red candle is going to mean the open was up here, close down here. A green candle will mean the open was down here, the close was up here. It's green on the day, or it's red on the day. And this, of course, does work across all of the different time intervals as well. But let's stick on this GameStop chart here daily and just remind you now with Bollinger Bars, what you're really focusing on is the wick aspect. So see, we've got these wicks here. This, of course, represents the high and low of the day. Now, it doesn't account for gaps. It doesn't account for anything else. It doesn't account for volume or anything like that. It's just showing that at one point, price got this high, and at another point on the same day, price got this low. But with Bollinger Bars, you can create a fully custom look and feel by seeing those wicks as specific colorized bars. When you double click on the indicator, you can change the color to your exact needs. Body is blue, but maybe you prefer a different color, something that stands out to you, something that makes you feel like this chart not only fits your exact methodology, but also works within the framework that you wish to accomplish. Now, what is interesting is we have Bollinger Bands added, and just look at the difference here. Now I have this bar here within the context of these Bollinger Bands. So combining the two makes for an interesting use case. You have effectively created a full-on bar. Just that, what's very different is you've colorized the wicks. Now, keep in mind, you can change the color of the wicks and of the bars, by the way. So if you wanted to see the bars on up days in a different color, you could do just that. If you wanted to change the bars on green days, you could do just that. So what we have effectively done is created not only a highly custom bar, but also custom wicks as well. One giant bar, all still works on our specific chart type and works with our Bollinger Bands indicator. So now that we've shown you these two tools, let's move on to the next one we want to show you, and that is the Bollinger Bands percentage B. So I'm going to click Bollinger Bands percentage B, and this indicator is a little different in the sense that it opens up this window down here at the bottom. Now, Bollinger Bands percentage B is a wonderful way to visualize whether or not the price of the symbol you're looking at is above or below its upper standard deviation line, its lower standard deviation line, or even just the moving average going through the middle. Now, I can show you how this indicator works quite easily because I'm going to hide Bollinger Bands and watch this. Okay, on Monday, the 28th, October 2024, I know GameStop was above its Bollinger Bands. On Tuesday, the 12th, November 2024, I know GameStop was above its Bollinger Bands. On Thursday, the 26th of December 2024, I know it was above its Bollinger Bands. Now watch this. I'm going to turn Bollinger Bands back on, and sure enough, you can see here, it broke out above that level. Let's see, on this same day, it broke out above that level. And let's see, this matches up perfectly. It broke out above that level. Now, how did I know that? How did I spot that on this specific chart? Well, this chart is effectively showing you three things. This red area at the top is showing you the top of the Bollinger Band. So if this blue line ever goes above this red area, it means it's above the Bollinger Band. So anything over 1 is above. Down here is 0. This is the bottom of the Bollinger Band on that specific day. Anything below this line means it was below that Bollinger Band. So this level here, it was below. In fact, let's add Bollinger Bands back on, and looks like it just barely touched it and clipped below. Not entirely, but close enough to get this sign here. But the point here is that you can very quickly see where it is just by looking at this percentage chart. Now, the blue line is the moving average. So this is really cool because you can actually quickly see if the price, okay, sure, on July 1st of 2024, we can see here that price was not above the red area, not below the green area, but we can see it was below the moving average. So let's go ahead and turn this back on, and let's see here. And there it is. Just need to delete this to really zoom in and show you. It was below the moving average right here. See the blue line? It's up here. The price action is below it there. So you can get a feel very quickly with this chart on where price is. Now, this is really helpful because maybe you just want to look at Bollinger Bars. You don't want the bands on your chart. And now you can just very quickly get a feel for the type of price action that's happened over time. And what's also nice too is just like all of the other indicators you're used to, you can even add alerts in these specific levels and get alerted when these events happen. Extreme buying, extreme selling, however you want to interpret it, it's right here as a separate chart. You can even double click and make this your own essential Bollinger Band percentage B chart to know how price has gone over time. You can draw on this chart, perform analysis on it, anything you need to do just to make some better or more informed decisions into the future. And now it's time to dive into the next Bollinger Band indicator, which is the Bollinger Bandwidth. Now, the key to understanding the Bollinger Bandwidth is reading its name, bandwidth. So you're not just looking at Bollinger Bands, you're looking at the width of the bands. How far apart are they from each other? Are they contracting or are they expanding? Now, on this chart, just right away, we're looking at GameStop. You can get a sense of how this indicator works based off of just looking at the most recent price action before this pop here in May of 2024. In fact, look how interesting this is. You might say that the bands were getting rather, you can almost say rather, they were tightening in a way. So let's actually zoom out. Here was the 2021 GameStop squeeze. We can see that. Look how large this squeeze was here. The bands really expanded, especially to the upside. The bottom here didn't move much, but the top band did. And then over time, it really just got tighter and tighter. It got flatter and flatter. In fact, you can even, if you wanted to, draw a trend line of sorts from this high and just look at how it just got tighter and tighter and tighter. It was almost, in a way, you might say, squeezing or getting on the cusp of squeezing. In fact, before it broke out most recently, look how, for example, it was just getting extremely tight right there into that moment. Then, of course, we're going to go move the chart forward in time. Look at this expansion here, pretty massive. Now, this ideally just gave you a quick overview of how this indicator can work. In fact, if you once again go to Bollinger Bandwidth, click on this description button, then move your mouse down, you will see right before your eyes actually a very nice walkthrough about how you can interpret this, specifically looking for what they call the squeeze. There's a bullish squeeze and there's a bearish squeeze. And there are some specific criteria that you might want to look for. Now, this isn't an exact science. It doesn't always work out like that. If you do your research, you might see it a different way. But the point is, no matter how you utilize it, there's something to be said about the bandwidth shrinking and contracting, and then the bandwidth expanding during very large moves. So let's just now dive into this indicator a little bit more deeply. All right, we've got the red line at the top, the green line at the bottom. As you know, this video has been all about Bollinger Bands, which are the bands that you see on the upper area here of the chart and the lower area, and they're measuring a standard deviation move. So you're following the statistical movement on a chart based on specific past data and then calculating its standard deviation and plotting that on the chart beautifully, just like this. And now you've got another framework to visualize that, specifically looking at not the price action as much as if the bands are contracting or expanding. What's so interesting about this chart, once again, is as you can see here, there was this huge spike here and thus this very large expansion. And ladies and gentlemen, take a look what's happening here. They seem to be contracting again. And what's especially interesting on this chart of GameStop daily is they're contracting and price is just gingerly moving up. What is going on here? Not entirely sure, but this is one way you can look into this chart, is then try to figure out what is happening. But before I get deeper into that, let's understand the settings of this. Now, specifically, you've got this higher expansion length, 125, lowest contraction length, 125. I'm going to change this just to 20 and 20. Our time frame says chart. Now, remember, if it says chart, that means our time frame here is a daily chart. So it's going back 20 days. If it was minutes, it'd be going back 20 minutes. If it was week, 20 weeks. So I can change where I want that highest point to start from before it begins calculating, or where I want that lowest contraction point to start from before it begins calculating. So if we were to go back 365 days, well, it's going to be sort of a much longer rolling process, and it's just going to look fundamentally different. So check that out. See, it already looks different because it's bringing in more data. It's acting a little slower, but for some specific instruments or assets, that might not be the best usage, especially if price is sort of coming back to a normal range rather quickly. In that case, especially if we are a short-term trader, we might want to use 30 because that might represent 30 days, or in that case, about a month of trading. Let's just say on average, there's 30 days in a month or so, not exact, but it's right around there. Well, now we've got our Bollinger Bands here being calculated based off of that new input that we put in, and we can see here that it is indeed contracting a little once again, as already mentioned. Now, if we double click, we've also got our length here, which is going to be this blue line that's being calculated, our source, which is close or anything that we see fit. We've got standard deviation options once again in the input if we want to change how wide of a standard deviation we want to measure between the Bollinger Bands. The choice is ultimately ours. Let's keep this to 2 for now. We already mentioned that you have your time frame, which is chart, but what's really cool about this is you can do multi-time frame analysis by looking specifically at the band width over time on different time frames. So this chart up here of GameStop is a daily chart, and it's got Bollinger Bands on it. That's also being calculated on a simple moving average, and it's chart, so it's daily. Well, we could go down here now to the band width aspect, and what we could do is do time frame, and let's look at a 4-hour calculation. So over the last 4 hours, and now that's 30. Well, that'd be over the last 30. 4 hours. Let's expand this back to, let's go back to 125, which is the default, and now we've got multiple time frames running here. And actually, this just got even more interesting because look at the contraction once again that's going on just on a short-term basis. So maybe if you're a trader who's not in that long, pretty interesting to see them so tight while moving up in such a sort of crisp manner, you might say. Now, it's very important to know that every symbol does move and trade differently, so you can't apply all of these concepts to every symbol. If you go to BTC USD, it might be a little different than what you see on GameStop. If you go to a ETF like the NASDAQ 100, it might be a little different. Ultimately, you're going to want to find the specific calculation and look and feel that you are going for. Now we're just going to go back to GameStop because it's been the focus of this video. Go to the settings menu and just remind you that you can also change the look and feel and style of this chart as needed. So Bollinger Bandwidth, we've got the blue line here measuring this bandwidth. We've got the highest expansion here in red, the lowest contraction here in green, and we've got that customization to our needs. But keep in mind, you can make this look and feel any way you want. In fact, you can get rid of the green and red altogether and perhaps do 2 totally different colors with 2 totally different opacities and line thickness, and really just go from there. So this is the Bollinger Band indicator suite. Now, one more quick tip here that you should be aware of is the BB trend indicator, which you can see is right here. So far we have covered Bollinger Bands, Bollinger Bands percentage B, Bollinger Bandwidth, and Bollinger Bars. And we're going to wrap this video up by covering BBTrend. But we're not going to go too deep into BBTrend because once again, click that tooltip, click play. You're going to get a full in-depth walkthrough of this indicator, even with some real examples demonstrated to you. But for now, because we're covering all of the Bollinger Band indicators, let's go ahead and click BBTrend, get that added to the chart. Now we're going to remove our Bollinger Bandwidth indicator and focus on trend. Once again, you can utilize the BB trend indicator with bands and with Bollinger Bars, and you've got it all right here in front of you. BB trend is a really wonderful indicator because you can very beautifully see the trend of that symbol relative to its specific upper band here. So for example, you can see that right around, so actually let's just explain this. You can see that down here things were sort of getting a little, there's tilting downward, let's put it that way. It was going below the moving average quite a bit. It was not exactly showing the strength. It tried to break out, it made it. Here is where it really started to get moving. And once it got moving from there, you can see that it just continued onward. And with that, you can see the consecutive green bars here just picking up steam, effectively showcasing that this trend has started of testing the upper band. So maybe it's a bullish trend. There's more buyers, there's more optimism. It keeps testing that bullish upper band. The same though could be true about the lower bands as well. So you can actually see how much red there is here at this part of the BB trend, and just take a look. It tested the band there, it tested the band there, it came down, tested the band there. The BB trend went red and for considerable amount of time. Now that's another very nice thing about this indicator is that just by default, you are quickly reminded about how long it can take for these trends to change. It doesn't just happen overnight. See here, this was July. This was sort of in this downward, pressing the lower band all the way until September. So very interesting to see visually and very easy to see visually with the BB trend. One quick glance, type in any symbol name, and you're going to get an understanding of what type of trend your asset is in relative to the standard deviation bands. Now, if we go to settings, this is very important. Like all of the Bollinger Band indicators, we can change the colors of the trends. You've got gradients here, the zero line. You can even change how you want the trend indicator to look, depending on where you're displaying this or how you want to see it. Look at this area graphic, for example. Choice is ultimately yours. But if you keep it on columns, you can really very easily see each day as an individual column. But what we really want to show you is that you have a short BB length and a long BB length, and in a way you're getting this sort of crossover between the two. So in fact, if we open up our indicators menu, we head to BB trend, we hit the tooltip and scroll down, you're really going to see that it all comes down to those two specific bands being calculated, that you've got the short length and the long length, and then the standard deviation of the two of them. And then you get a feel for how that trend is developing over time and whether the trend is a long-term trend or a short-term trend. But once again, we've hit about 23 minutes on this video. So if you want more on the BB trend indicator, click play right here, super in depth. I even walk you through the actual math and concepts of this indicator. But for now, thanks so much for watching. You now know how to use all of the Bollinger indicators on TradingView. And this should be a deep enough walkthrough to really get anyone on the planet started with these indicators. So thanks so much for watching, and we hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, please subscribe and let us know if you have any feedback.